Hey, Keto for Beginners. I'm going to talk to you today about how to set up MyFitnessPal. I hear people talk about this tracker all the time, and I think a lot of people make a mistake. The first mistake they make is when it asks you about your weight and it asks you about your goals, they go ahead and they put in that they want to lose weight. And when it calculates the number of calories that they should eat, it goes based on this weight loss. So people put in things like, I want to lose a pound and a half a week. Pound and a half a week is a giant calorie deficit. You're talking about 3,500 calories per pound, so a pound and a half a week. You're talking about multiple hundreds of calories a day. So what I'm going to tell you is that's not really how ketogenic works. That's kind of how calorie restriction works. And I'm not going to confuse the two. You do have to eventually have a calorie deficit for you to lose weight, but you don't necessarily have to have a calorie restriction. So what I recommend when you set up MyFitnessPal is you go to your settings and then you go to your goals and you answer the questions about your weight and your activity level and you set it to maintain weight. Because let's be honest, if you've got a weight problem or if you're doing keto for weight loss, you've probably been gaining weight for years. Let's start with step one. Let's not gain any more weight. The second thing is that ketogenic diets, they help with insulin and they unlock fat loss and certain things that are to be to the advantage of a keto diet. But the main thing that I would say keto diets help with is the lack of hunger. I've been hungry on every other kind of way of eating I've tried, and on a keto diet I come up 1,000 or 1,300 calories short of my daily goals without even trying. So set your MyFitnessPal to your weight based on maintaining weight and your height and your activity level, and then go into your macros and set your macros to 5% carbohydrates, 30 or 35% protein, depending on how active you are. If you're more muscular, go with 35, and then set the rest of the percentage to carbs, like 60 or 65% carbs. So what you're going to do here is you're only going to count your carbs. I'm sick of everybody else talking about other macros. Oh, too much protein, not enough fat, whatever. Somebody's going to disagree with me, and that's fine. People can disagree with me, but in my opinion, count the carbs. Month one, that's all you have to do, just the carbs. Some people will say, well, there's a specific amount of protein you're supposed to eat. Look, if you're eating something really, really wacky, maybe you can avoid the 30% protein, but for the most part, people that aren't paying any attention will get the protein with their fat that they need. So when in doubt, count the carbs. And yes, in general, if you're hungry, aim for a fat. But you can generally ignore your macros as long as you keep carbs under control. Now, what about the maintain versus losing weight? If you set up to maintain, you didn't set up to lose weight. So are you going to lose weight? Well, again, I'm telling you, you don't need to count the calories. In keto, I would recommend eating to satiation and counting your carbs. And what's going to happen, and again, not for weeks. This is keto month one, so I want you guys to not even pay attention to the scale or anything else, or count calories for the first 2 weeks for damn sure, but probably not week 3 or 4 either. You're going to notice that with the carb restrictions you have and all the protein and fat you've been eating, if you're tracking your food on this food app, it's not going to be the calorie restriction that tells you can't eat anymore. It's going to be you saying that you're not hungry anymore. You're going to log your foods. And I'm even drinking liquor. So even yesterday I had 500 calories of alcohol because it's Arts Fest and it's a party and I had friends over. But I didn't make it anywhere near 2,000 calories. And for my size, MyFitnessPal puts me at 2,700. So that's how I want you to enter a calorie deficit. Not restricting calories by setting up MyFitnessPal to tell you can't have a bunch of food. I want you to set up just to restrict your carb count. Only the carb count for the first month. Pay attention to that carb count, and eventually you're going to notice that you're just not as hungry as you were. And you're not eating all the calories that MyFitnessPal tells you can. And you're going to see that every day you have a maintenance goal of calories and you're coming up hundreds of calories short of that. And those hundreds of calories will add up to your ketogenic weight loss, because what will happen is your insulin levels are going to drop, you're going to unlock all your fat stores, your body's going to be processing energy from your fat 24/7. So as long as you stay relatively well hydrated and don't eat enough carbs to interrupt that ketogenic process, you're going to have food all the time. You're going to be full all the time. And again, this is for people that are losing weight loss through this. If you already have low body fat, or if you're doing it for blood sugar or some other reason, perhaps this isn't the video for you. But if you're looking to lose weight through a ketogenic diet, don't set up your MyFitnessPal to lose weight. Set up your MyFitnessPal to maintain weight, count your carbs, ignore your calories for the first month, and just log your foods. And you know what's going to happen? Sometime this month, or right at the end of it, you're going to stop eating all the calories you're supposed to be allowed. And all of a sudden, you're going to be running a calorie deficit every day, and the weight's going to start coming off. But if you start now on week 1, especially when you're not fat adapted, and you say, okay, let's lose 2 pounds a week, and I'm only allowed to have 20 carbs. Well, first of all, you're not fat adapted, so your ketosis processes are not running at full capacity. They can't. You have enzymes in the liver that take weeks to upcycle, and you're not there yet. So what happens when you're not keto adapted and you take away glucose? You feel like shit. I hate the words keto flu because it could be just a lack of energy. Like if you try to go to fat adaptation before you're fat adapted and you try to enter ketosis, you're not going to have the blood sugar and you're not going to have the ketones. You're just going to feel tired and shitty. And the flu, you're not actually sick. It's just a collection of kind of shitty symptoms. You might not get enough of your sodium, magnesium, and calcium and potassium, and you might experience cramps. That's not the keto flu, but if you're cramping as a result of doing keto, people will call it the keto flu. That's an electrolyte imbalance. I think it confuses things because some people think the cure to all keto flu is electrolytes, and some keto flu symptoms are just people that get mildly into ketosis or the beginning of ketosis, and they're not efficient at ketosis yet, and they strip away all their glucose, and they can't sleep, and they're lethargic, and they get headaches. That's just because your body is straight out of energy. It takes you weeks to enter a really well fat adapted state. So if this is week 1 for you in keto, don't do that. Like, you can't just go off the cliff. Weeks 1 and 2, I'm telling you, don't track the calories. Eat until you're full. Just try to avoid carbs. And even eating until you're full in week 1, if you don't have that glucose, you're going to feel a little tired. So maybe some people recommend taper. I didn't taper, so I can't tell you how a taper went, but on reading about why maybe you should taper and say cut your carbs down to 150, and then 100, and then 50, and then go to 20 on those first couple of days, is because your body really doesn't have what it takes to energize itself without glucose at first. And to be fair, the standard American diet has about 250 grams of carbohydrates a day, or 1,000 calories of carbohydrates a day. Cutting down to 150 is already a dietary intervention. Under 100, most scientists would refer to as a very low carb diet. Under 50 is extremely low carb, and under 20 is going to help you reach ketosis. But know that when you're starting, if you cut to 150 carbs a day or 100 carbs a day, you're already doing a dietary intervention. You're already reducing the amount of insulin that you're dealing with. So I would say set your carb limits, work your way down to 20, completely ignore how many calories you're eating, eat all the food that you need to get full, and somewhere around weeks 2 through 4, you will be full all the time, pretty much. You're not going to feel like you really need to eat. Hangry is going to go away. You're going to feel like, I could eat. I could put something in right now. And you're going to grab maybe a burger or something. You might not finish it. You'll feel full. And then you stop eating so much. And the calorie deficit, it arrives through a lack of hunger, through satiation, not through willpower like every other diet you've ever done. If you're willpowering your way through keto, you're probably doing it wrong. And a lot of people also, the other reason I hate keto flu before we go is keto flu blames it on keto. The symptoms that you're experiencing are because you're doing keto. The symptoms you're experiencing more often than not are an addiction to sugar and carbohydrates, and you're detoxing, and it's terrible. So to blame it on ketosis hasn't given me symptoms. Once I got fat adapted and was into ketosis, I enjoy it. There's a little bit of, I won't say no symptoms. You do have like keto breath and some things. There are body smell changes that can happen that some people like, some people don't like. You know, it's a change. And if you have a girlfriend or something, they like the way you smell. If you change, they notice. So there's been those kinds of side effects, but the keto flu side effects, the cramping and the low energy, that's the sugar cycle breaking. That's people being addicted. People stress too much about hitting their fat macro. It's not necessary to hit the fat, especially if you're trying to lose fat. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Don't worry about hitting that macro at all. If you're hungry and you're already at your limit for, your carbs, you're allowed to eat fats. But what I'm saying is just worry about hitting your carbs till week 3 or 4. You'll stop being hungry all the time. You'll start hitting a calorie deficit on your own without enforcing it, without denying yourself food. So weeks 1 through 3, just learn your new way of eating. You got to eat these whole new different foods. You got to shop for new different foods. You got to prepare food differently. You got to use different oils to heat things. You got to use different sweeteners to sweeten things. You got to get different kinds of flour that help you stay keto. And that's a lot to be learning in 1 week. That's a lot to be doing in 1 week. Don't on top of that be hungry and crabby all the time because you're also restricting your fats and your proteins like you're going to be efficient at doing that in week 1. Your body isn't ready to run on fats. I'm on day 6 and already feeling great. Day 2 was hard, but I feel great today. Depending on your weight, you might be entering some level of fat adaptation and ketosis, but I'm telling you, you're going to feel better weeks 2 and week 3 than you do on week 6. And the bigger you are, the more ketosis tends to happen. It's a little bit like wildfire. If you have a whole bunch of fat and you put yourself in a carbohydrate deficiency, that ketosis process, it's a chain reaction. It's happening everywhere. The leftover reactants from the first reaction cause secondary and tertiary reactions. So once ketosis picks up, it goes flying through. Yeah, 240. So I don't know how tall you are, I don't know your BMI, but at 240 you definitely have some fat to run on. So stay hydrated. That's the other thing. People do not talk enough about drinking water. Part of the reason that people have the keto flu is because people underestimate how many calories are in some people's drinks. So when you take it away, maybe somebody drank orange juice 3 times a day. Maybe somebody had coffee with milk in it 3 or 4 times a day. Maybe somebody drank Gatorade. Somebody else used to hit the sodas pretty good. And so when you take all of that away and you go back to water, some people don't adapt to water. I think there's a big over-reliance on that meal with electrolytes because you need to drink 10 glasses a day to get your electrolytes. But if you don't like the flavor of water and we're taking away your flavored water, by all means, find a Mio or a Crystal Light. And I'm not super in favor of tons of artificial sweeteners because sugar alcohols can have other problems. But I definitely have had a Monster energy drink with sugar alcohols in it since I've been keto. And some of that stuff makes you feel normal and good again. Anyways, I'm wandering a little off topic. I wanted to keep it shorter, but that's how to set up your MyFitnessPal. Hit your carbs, ignore your other macros. Don't worry about forcing a calorie deficit. That will show up on its own. Keto flu is not keto's fault. Keto's flu is your addiction to other stuff. And for those of you who are having a really hard time getting started, taper and acknowledge that 150 carbs and 100 carbs is way less than the 250 grams of carbs that most people eat, and that you'd be on your way to reducing your insulin levels and working towards ketosis if you start there on the first couple of days. That's my advice. Take it or leave it. My standard disclaimer, I'm just some guy. This is just my kitchen. There's no reason. This is not a surgical ward. This is not the ER. This is just me and a selfie stick in my kitchen on a Saturday. But KetoDick here. I just wanted to give you some basic advice based on the most common misperceptions that I see in the forums. That people go into their MyFitnessPal and they type in all this shit, and then they're like, I need to eat exactly this much protein, exactly this much fat, and also I'm still hungry on day 1. And every time I ask, did you put it in to lose weight? And almost all the time they say, yeah, I put it in to lose 2 pounds a week. That's a ton. 2 pounds a week, so you're 7,000 calories a week deficit. That's 1,000 calories less per day. Don't do that to yourself when you're starting. Just put in the carbs, eat the carbs, and eventually your lack of carbohydrates in your diet is going to make your appetite regulation work better, and you're not going to be hungry all the time, especially if you have extra fat to run on. Stay hydrated, hit your carbs, ignore all the other macros. It'd be nice if you got fiber. And keto flu is your addiction waning, not keto starting. So blame keto flu on your old way of eating, not your new way of eating. This has been Dick. I hope it was helpful to some of you. Again, I'm not an authoritative person of any kind. I'm not the admin. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a dietitian. And feel free to ignore everything I say is bullshit. That's fine with me. If you found this useful, tag a friend. And for any of you that are on your keto journey, I don't know about you, I talk about keto too much. My friends don't want to hear about keto anymore. My mom loves that I worry about my health, doesn't want to hear about keto anymore. My girlfriend really loves the way I look. She loves that I'm losing weight. She loves that I'm taking care of my body. She don't want to hear about keto anymore. So if you're at a point where nobody in your life wants to hear about your keto anymore, they don't want to hear about your weight loss anymore, they don't want to hear what you had for breakfast or what your blood sugar was this morning, you can feel free to send me DMs. I don't sell anything. I'm not a personal trainer. I consider myself a coach only because I'm a business consultant, and as a business consultant, one of the things I do is accountability coaching. And the key to accountability coaching is not that I have any ideas, it's just that I ask you, what do you want to get done this week? And then next week I ask you how that went, and I ask you why. And that's it. And if you have a reason that you can explain to yourself, why things didn't happen. Lots of times things don't happen. So if you want to talk to me and say, hey, this week I just want to hit my carbs, and then next Monday you want to say I didn't hit my carbs, we can commiserate and talk about why. I'm not billing anybody for it. I just find it interesting to hear about people's journeys, what works for them, what didn't work for them, how they got to this point, how people in their life react. That stuff's just interesting to me. Why am I doing these videos? Just to practice talking and to practice video broadcasting for another project I'm doing for business consulting, to talk about people and their businesses and how they find clients. So by getting used to talking and by saying less, making more eye contact with the camera, I'm just doing myself a service, finding a way to practice broadcasting while I explore this new way of eating as well. I'm keto for the first time. So I'm about 33 days keto. I don't know. I don't know what the date is. It's like the 14th of July, and I started June 13th, so maybe 32 days into keto, and I'm hitting about 1,400 to 1,000 calorie deficits every day, and that's eating all the food I want. It's just I'm not hungry lately. So that's why I'm telling you, follow my journey. Cut the carbs. Don't worry too much about the other macros. Push fat where you can, and the biggest problem I see when people make a thing is they're still eating things like lean chicken breast, which is a legacy of genetic design and farming based on the low-fat movement in the 1980s. Get some skin on that chicken, eat some chicken thighs, eat fattier pieces of beef like chuck roast. And you don't have to look up keto recipes only. Just find a fatty piece of meat and look up chuck roast recipes. Or if you're going to use ground beef, use 70-23 or whatever. Don't use the 85-15. Don't use lean green ground beef. And throw some butter and some other oils in when you're cooking things. Even if you're doing vegetables, just saute them in a little butter or coconut oil. This is it for today. I wanted to keep it shorter than this, so I've already run long. I'm going to talk some other time about why I'm not a big fan of MCT oil and why bulletproof coffee gets my goat. So feel free to contact me about those topics too, and I'll make a video about them later. Bye everyone.